Hi, y'all. It's Barbara from Divine Creative Love, and I'm excited to bring you a new Bible journaling tutorial. This one's on John chapter 15, where Jesus tells us that He is the true vine. Especially verse 4 is what we're going to focus on, in which He says, "Remain in me, and I in you. Just as a branch is unable to produce fruit by itself unless it remains on the vine, neither can you unless you remain in me." So that's the verse that we're going to focus on for this page. So I've got some notes that I took. I actually looked up the definition of what it means to remain or abide, is what some of the other translations say. And also the Greek root word. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I have no idea how to pronounce it, but it's translated as remain, stay, or abide. So any of those words that describe what it means to stay close to Jesus. And then I've got some stamp sets set up here that I'm going to be using, especially this grapevine border and some other word stamps. And then I've got some paints picked out, some green and some white that we're going to be using for the background, and we're going to turn it into kind of a mixed media page background. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to speed up the video here. And I started with just the light green background. And you notice here I remembered last minute, I always put a piece of cardstock paper behind the page. And this is my illustrating Bible, by the way. So I did not prep the page with any gesso because the illustrating Bible has good thicker paper. And then I've got this piece of cardstock that I cut out to use as a guide. So I would only get the green paint in the margin, and then also on the top and bottom margin, and wanted to keep the text completely unpainted. So I'm just using a dry brush to paint on the green, and this is just plain everyday acrylic paint. And then just painting the green over the whole page. You can see it wrinkles a little bit, but that's okay. It'll dry, and then eventually it'll flatten out once you finish. And it's worth noting, you might notice that I forgot to move that little piece of cardstock, and then I kind of smudged the paint a little bit. So when you're using a piece of paper like that, so you always remember to move it over as needed, when the time comes, and don't forget to move it or you'll get paint where you don't want it, like I did. There's a couple little smudges down there. And then I wanted to put a little paint in the top, avoiding the page heading there. And now that that's done, I don't want to waste the leftover paint, so I actually took it and put it back in the bottle. And then just used some water to clean off the palette. And then the next step is to add some white, and I've actually got a textured brush for that I'm going to use. But you can use any kind of like a special brush, like a fan brush, or any kind of textured brush that's a little bit different than just a flat brush. So once it's dry, I got this little, I'm not even sure what it's called, but it's like creates kind of like a like a confetti, snowy kind of texture, and you just kind of pounce it up and down to get that texture. I want to say they call it a scruffy brush, but it just creates that fun texture. And then I wanted to kind of lighten up the green and add that nice texture in there. So I'm just covering the whole page with that texture. And you could actually do this with totally different colors. You could start with a lighter color as your base color and go in with a darker color for the texture. But I chose white specifically for this because I wanted to make the page a lighter, better background for the stamps we're going to add. And you'll notice as I'm painting here, I'm not dipping the brush in too much paint, because too much paint would completely obscure the green. So I just got enough paint on the brush and kind of worked it off a little bit so it wouldn't cover the green completely. And then once I got this background like I wanted it, I wanted to get a little brush and go in and fix my little smudges that I created because I forgot to move the cardstock before I got to that point. So I just used a tiny little detail brush to cover up those boo-boos. You know, I always say this, but it's okay to make mistakes in Bible journaling. It's going to happen. There will be smudges and smears and, you know, things that got positioned in the wrong place, but that's okay. There are ways to fix it, or maybe it doesn't even matter. Maybe, you know, in some cases you don't need to fix it. So when I'm doing errors, I have the Jesus stamp that I was going to use, and I have the letters, so I wanted to figure out where the positioning would be, because I'm going to go in with more white paint and make that area even more white, so it'll create a much brighter background for those stamps. So you can see I made it almost all white in that little circular area. And that's the nice thing about layering paint. You know, you can add a little bit and let the base color show through, or in this case you can add a lot and make it show through very little. And then once again I put the leftover paint back in the jar, and then just a little cleanup, and then we're ready to add the stamps. So I chose this lovely dark purple color, which is, you know, the color of grapes. And I'm going to stamp the Jesus one first, just to get the positioning right, so then I can stamp letters for abide in around Jesus' name. And then I usually clean up my stamps first with just a damp paper towel, and then later I go back and use a stamp cleaner if there's a lot of ink left on it. And then just want to make sure that stamp is dry first. And then I have this little index card that I cut. I just folded it in half and cut like that little arch at the top. So that will be my guide for where the letters need to go. And then this is just some very light tack tape that's easy to hold it in place and then easy to remove. And then I just stamped the letters in that same purple, kind of estimating where they needed to go to get them kind of close to centered. And I did edit out the process of me cleaning each one, so it goes pretty quick. You won't see me actually clean them, but I did. I cleaned each letter stamp in between. And that letter I set aside there because it's going to be needed one more time. And you can kind of see that my centering was not quite right. The word in is going to go a little off to the right. So once I got that done, I actually went looking for another little stamp that I could put in front of abide. So I've got this other stamp set, and then the little heart is all I wanted from that. And I'm just going to add the little heart there, so it just makes it look a little more centered. So that's another way, you know, you can kind of fix something that's not quite right. Just add a little something else, and then it makes it look centered. And it's, you know, it's sweet. It just works. Okay, so next I've got this Doodle Flowers stamp set in this very cute vine that I'm going to stamp below Jesus' name. And I kind of position it so that it acts almost as an underline or like a frame for Jesus. And the next thing we're going to do is add some notes. I've got the index card that I showed you earlier that I took down some definitions on, and I was going to write down some of those. I actually started with a Pentel pen that wasn't writing very well on the paint. It wasn't very thick, so I got out my trusty Pigma Micron pen that is a little bit thicker and works well on top of a lot of different things. And then I just wrote down a few different points, like endure in faith and stay intimately connected to Jesus through prayer, Bible study, and I wrote down good deeds on my note card, but actually at the last minute changed what I wrote down to doing good works. Same thing, but I decided to write doing good works instead. And then I was thinking to myself, and I actually thought of a third point that I wanted to write down on the actual Bible page, which was to stay loyal to Christ even in the midst of trials. And I just kind of thought of that, off the top of my head. And then the last thing that I wanted to write down was the actual definition of the Greek word. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it looks like no. No idea how it's pronounced, but it's translated as remain, stay, or abide. So some translations use one word or the other. I just used abide for this page because I like the feel of it. It just, it sounds like abiding in a friend or something. And then for the finishing touch on the background, I wanted to add some grapes. So I've got this Art Impressions stamp that's a grapevine. And then I'm using this very fun technique. I just learned this like a few months ago. It's where you don't even use a stamp block with your stamp. Just take the stamp in your hand like this, and then ink like a little part of it. You could ink the whole thing if you want, but I'm just inking part of it, and then just stamping the little grapes all along the background. So I added a few at the bottom. I'm adding a few more around Jesus' name, and then decided that was good for that point. And then I was going to add some of the vines in the stamp. So I brought out the green again and just inking up just the little vine leaves in the stamp. And then kind of adding those just wherever I felt like it. They don't show up as much as the grapes do, but they're still at a nice little touch. Just some little grape leaves to go along with the grapes, which is very appropriate, because a big point that Jesus made is we need to stay connected to him so we can bear fruit. And without him, we can't bear that fruit. We can't do anything, really worthwhile. We can try, but we fall short, and we need to stay connected to him to be as fruitful as he calls us to be. And I just really love how this background was turning out. It just drives home the point that if we remain in Jesus, if we abide in him, then we can bear much fruit. And that the page just showcases that with all the grapes that were on there. So it turned out like so much better than I had hoped it would. And lastly, I just added a little bit of the grape leaves in the top and the bottom margins, and then I thought it would be sweet to add a little leaf on either side of Jesus' name. And then I was taking a second to wipe the green ink off of the stamp, and I actually decided that I wanted to add a few more grapes to the page, so I went back to the purple, added a little bit more grapes actually at the top of the page, and then a little bit along the side here. Just thought it needed a little bit more. And then at that point I decided that's good enough. I could keep adding, but I didn't want to mess it up and add too much. So the next thing I did is I took this metallic slicky pen and I wanted to add some green coloring to the letters in Jesus' name, kind of make it stand out a little bit more. It just looked like it needed color since it's just outlines. And those slicky pens, they're very good for that kind of detail work. The gel pen tip, it's a lot, not a lot, but a little bit thinner than most gel pens. Like this pen that I'm about to use to outline the passage is a Jelly Roll pen, and it's a little thicker tip, so the ink that comes out is a thicker line, but that Slicky pen was better for the detailing. But overall, if you're looking for gel pens, Jelly Roll is my absolute favorite. It's the most juicy gel pen and the most reliable and fun to write with. So that's what I chose, just to outline the verse. And you notice I used an index card to make sure that I got straight lines around it. And then I went with the Slicky pen to do the underlining of verse 4 to emphasize that. Jesus said, "Remain in me and I in you." So I don't know about you, but I need to do a lot more of that, abiding in Jesus. I just love how the page turned out. It's turned out so much better than I had hoped it would, and it just drives home the point that we need to stay connected to Jesus in order to bear the fruit that He's called us to do. And I hope this encourages you to do your own Bible study on John chapter 15 and to think about what it truly means to stay close to Jesus and what it takes, for us to bear fruit. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it inspiring, be sure and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you next time. Bye!